Here it goes. Hey everyone, you're listening to Business Lunch, a podcast for anyone who wants to not think about work while thinking about work. We discuss some of the biggest issues facing the wide world of business management today. Also, we talk about lunch. I'm your host, Scott.
Jim and Will.
And our last episode was about how to take sick day, when to take one and how to decide when to take one. And since that episode, both Jim and I have had some serious, there you go. You're hearing it right now. Yeah, Will somehow hasn't caught it yet, but it's really, we're recording in a small room now. It's only a matter of time. By the end of this recording, I assume he's going to be pretty sick.
Oh.
Yeah, so he'll need to refer to our previous episode.
Sorry if you can't hear me. I was trying to talk behind a mask.
Exactly. So today's episode is all about transparency. We're going to talk about what transparency is. We're going to talk about why it's essential to businesses, and then we're going to talk a little bit about how to get it. So let me frame this topic for you. So according to a recent study by Label Insight, they said up to 94% of consumers surveyed indicated that they were more likely to be loyal to a brand that offers transparency. And 73% of people said they were willing to pay more for a product that offers complete transparency. So, as consumers, we want to buy products and services where we feel like we know exactly what we're getting. But transparency also is relevant to kind of an internal context, within businesses themselves. Transparency builds trust. It makes employees feel that they're working for a company with higher ethical standards. So I think we should talk a little bit about this today. I want to jump right into it, and we've got a surprise food discussion that we'll have a little bit later. But for right now, I just want to open it up with this idea of transparency. So let me ask you guys, what does transparency mean in the context of a business?
Interesting. Yeah, I think there's a lot of different levels that transparency can be applied to. You have the internal transparency, the external transparency. The rules and policies that your company's posted, where you get your product from, that can all be considered transparency. Others talk about, internally operation, who's in charge of what, there's things about salaries and rules and policies and metrics. And some of it is just, being open and not giving fake lies and hiding things, not being secretive. To me, is in a way almost a transparency. That's my bar. It's just not lying and hiding things.
Sure. I mean, it's 2019, right? So people are going to find out what they need to find out. It's there. So it makes sense to be transparent. And when we say transparent, the ultimate goal that I think everybody's trying to achieve is trust. That, for me, is the biggest word, right? It's trust. You want to build that trust, whether it's across your brand, whether it's across your product, whether it's across the organization, whether it's internal and external. Trust, for me, is the big factor. And so I think that's what everybody's trying to achieve. Everybody that's doing it, let's put it that way.
Transparency is the means to the end of trust.
That's correct. And that's what they're trying to get to. So opening everything up to get to that trust factor. And I think that's what everybody wants. That's what that 73% likes about it, right? And they're willing to pay more is because they have a bond and a relationship through trust. And yes, you're absolutely right. Transparency is a means to that. And I think it's necessary for organizations to embrace transparency today.
Absolutely.
I want to go off the notes here for a minute, and because I think this is interesting, and I want to ask you guys, transparency is a thing that we all want for the reasons that you're describing. Why do you think a lot of businesses don't practice it? You hear all the time about people complain about, well, I don't know this, or I don't have access to this, or I don't understand why this is happening. Why is this so common in businesses?
It's weird. I think it's an old school thinking, right? I mean, when you grew up if you did grow up, I did, in the 80s, 90s, they had all this stuff about, keeping everything secret. There was a big push that way. You didn't want to let out what And if it's a private company, you don't want to let out what your financials are and things of that nature and how well you're doing.
You just keep,
you just keep people focused somewhere. I've actually heard somebody back in the day say, I don't want anybody to know how much money we're making because everybody's going to want a raise. Well, they probably deserve one, right? So it's that kind of thinking. And to me, that's old school. I think all of that's changing. At least I hope so. I know that we're experiencing the change here. But I know hopefully that's changing. And I think it's just an old school mentality because in today's world, you can find out a lot of stuff just by going online. It's transparent whether you want to know it or not. You might as well let it out, kind of a thing.
Yeah, and going along with that too, that old school thinking is, it really comes down to is, like you said, it's having that trust, and that trust definitely has to go both ways. And the employees can't trust the employer if the employer doesn't trust the employees too.
Okay.
And the only way to do that is to have that transparency, because trust, you can have trust without transparency in a way. I think you can do that, but the problem is that the good thing is that when you have transparency, that is a way to have that trust, because you can tell if they're lying or not. You don't necessarily need to trust them. To me, trusting is having a belief behind someone without seeing necessary evidence, because that's not trusting. That's just a fact.
And Will, when you say lying, I think about either withholding information, right, or saying misleading, right? There are so many different ways that we can lie in business, right? It's not always ill-intentioned, but sometimes it's just not saying the thing that you need to say so someone can understand where you're coming from or what they should be working on or anything like that. Okay, so I want to move to another question here. We're talking a little bit about transparency on an internal level within the organization itself. So how does transparency on an internal level produce transparency on an external level?
Well, I think, first of all, you can look at what your mission statement is, what your values are. Being open about all of that translates out to a customer, right? So it helps guide you making decisions for the customer, informing the customer, keeping them up to date about things. It kind of drives you. We do that here, right? We call it people need to know, right? And that's what we call it. And the idea behind that is you want to let them know as soon as you know, right? You don't want to wait. If they have to ask, we fail. You absolutely fail. And in their eyes, you failed if they have to ask and you're going to give them. Even if you give them good information, right? Even if you give them good answer and they're happy with the answer, you failed because they've asked you without you already having the answer and getting it to them. So I think from an internal perspective, that'll drive it externally, right? From a customer perspective when you see that. So.
It's funny you say that. I was working with a coworker earlier who gave me a recommendation that, hey, maybe we should go after this particular vendor that he's experiencing. He buys a product for them, and he has such horrible customer service that he recommended we reach out to them to help improve the product that they use to manage their customer service. And I took a look at what they were currently using, and I realized it's not the product. They're using a fantastic product, strictly the company. Right. And his issue was that he kept having to ask for follow-up and over and over and over again. That's not the product's fault. That's the company's fault. Great. That's the company's motto. That's where they fail.
It's a great example. That's a great example.
Going along with this, I think technology plays a role in some of this. So let's talk about that for a minute. How do you think technology plays a role in getting transparency throughout your business?
I think the easiest way is the fact that transparency allows people to proactively check without needing to ask. For example, if you have the current status of something on something that the customer can access, or even other employees can access, I don't need to take your time to ask, hey, what is the status in this? I can just go out and check if it matters to me. If I don't have the way to check, and I have the fact that I need to call up and ask, and then that's where you found, maybe I'm not asking because I can find out myself, and, that's great. But when you need, like you were saying, you need to call up to ask, there's a failure.
Yeah. I think, so for me, it's a couple of, there's two types of transparency there. I think there's a limited transparency and more of full. Well, I'll call it full, but it's maybe not 100%, right? So you've got transparency in technology and software where you can see data in an accounting package or an HR package. And I think those are great, but sometimes those are limited to only those people in those packages. And I think so for me, that's a limited transparency, right? So I work in HR, I can see everything in HR, but I cannot see accounting. So first of all, I don't get a 360-degree view, right? Full visibility of a client, right? Or a customer. I don't get that. So for me, that's partial visibility. The full visibility is when everything's connected. So when everything's connected, I think you get a bigger picture of the client, right? So I should be able to look at the CRM and be able to see who talked to them last, what's the status of the client, how happy they are, those types of things. And for me, that's full transparency internally, for and how technology is using that today. And I think that's the need that has to happen. Everything can't be in 5 different silos. They should be, in a perfect world, all in one place with access that's limited by roles or something like that. So anyway, limited and kind of full or some level of full access to that transparency. So
I think that makes sense. I mean, with employees in a company, we can't necessarily expect that everyone will know all of the right things to say to all of the people that they need to say it to. Right. We get busy and we work on things and we ignore other things. But if others have access to the information without having to ask, then it can make things a lot easier.
Just think about that. Think about if everything is together and I'm working with a client and they ask a question that I can answer, that I don't have to transfer them somewhere. That's customer service. That's transparency internally, and that's an experience on the outside that they'll get back. So,
well said. Okay, well, it's time to get to our food segment of the podcast. So because this is an episode about transparency, I want to ask you guys, what's your favorite transparent food? And there's a caveat here. It can also be semi-transparent.
Since you designed the question, I think you have a very semi-transparent food in mind for yourself, other than maybe you were trying to be nice. So I don't know why you added that caveat in there. I'm kind of curious about it.
I do not have a good answer to this question, and I was really hoping that you guys would go first and you'd kill a little bit of time, and I'd figure it out in the process.
Good thing I asked that question because that killed the time as we're all thinking of the answers. But my answer, I think, is going to have to be, and maybe the caveat is whether or not this is food, but I would go with Jell-O shots.
I think it's food. It can be ingested, and it
has calories, provides sustenance.
It might not kill you.
All right. Yeah, I don't have anything. I might go down the same route. So my
this is where the episode just goes downhill fast.
So it would be vodka, water, and an orange. I throw the orange.
No soup,
that's
no
food.
Chicken noodle soup.
Yeah, no chicken noodle soup.
I'm confused. Vodka, water, and an orange at the same time?
Oh yeah, all in the same glass.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
is that almost like a vodka and tonic almost?
Almost. Yeah. Without the calories.
Well, when you threw the orange in there, it became real food. So good for you. Good for you.
That's why I threw the fruit in there.
I mean, I was going to go for, I'm trying to think of semi-transparent foods. I was going to go for Jell-O, but I don't like Jell-O. So the best thing I can come up with is like, there's like clear glass noodles that you get sometimes.
Good.
Yeah, you get them in a stir fry or something. But even then, I'm lying. I'm not being transparent. That's not. I guess if we have to stack it up against the other things that are transparent, sure, that's probably my favorite thing. But I may need to wait until the next episode to fully weigh in on this topic.
Yeah, that was a tough one.
I mean, this is all of my own doing. I don't know why I designed this question. It's a complicated topic with a complicated food to go along with.
Next week's gonna be vodka too.
Okay, good. Yeah, that can be your answer from now on. I'll try to find some fun
Jim,
questions.
Put the vodka down.
Yeah.
On that note, it's time to end this lunch chat. So thanks everybody. Make sure to subscribe to our channel. You can listen to us on Apple Podcasts, on Google Podcasts. You can listen to us on YouTube, and wherever you find podcasts, just find us and listen.
Everywhere, listen to us. Please.
Pretty much everywhere.
Subscribe.
And we'll see you pretty soon.